Up till now, each variable that we create can store one value at a time per variable. But what if we need to work with lists of data? In other words, I need to keep track of several people or several numbers, and I need to store them in such a way that it doesn't matter if I have 2 or 10 or 100, I can kind of keep them together and move them all around and use them in my application as a list, as a grouping of related values. In that case, I want to create an array. And so let's start by creating a new file called arrays.js. And first of all, an array is basically a variable that can hold many different values. And so we can declare a variable and initialize its value like so. So here we'll do let a equals, and here we're going to use an opening and closing square brace or bracket, and then I'm going to give it a series of values. Each value will be separated by a comma for let's say 15, 16, 23, and 42. All right, and so now I have an array of those values. Now these are just numeric values. What if I wanted to create an array of string values? I can do something similar. In fact, I can use any data type inside of here that's allowable in JavaScript, and we'll see some examples of that a little bit later. But I might want David, Eddie, Alex, and Michael. All right. And then what if I want to get one of the values? I can just do console.log. All right. Inside of here, I'm going to use the variable name. So in this case, I'll use A. And then I'll want to provide a index to retrieve one of the elements. So each of these is an element of the array. And I want to use an index, a numeric value that allows me to get at one of those elements inside of the array. The indexes are 0 based. That trips up beginners sometimes. For example, to get at the number 4, the first element in the array, I would use the index 0. If I want the second item in the array, the second element of the array, I would need to use the index 1, and so on. So to get at it, I'm going to use A, and then right next to the A, square brackets, and then I'm going to give it an index. So here we'll grab the first value, and then I'll grab the second value. All right. And then I want to show you how console.log will just print out all of the values for you nicely if you just want to give it the name of the array itself, the variable itself. So let's save our work, and we'll go node arrays. All right, so you can see the first element of the array at index 0 gives us the value 4. The second element of the array at index 1 gives us the value 8. All right, hope you can see the correlation there. Or if I just want to print out all the values in the array, I can just provide the variable name that contains the array, and it will print them out for me, just like I have kind of here when I actually initialized our array variable. All right, let's comment this out. Now that is how we access individual elements. What if I wanted to change or set the value of one of the elements? The same would work. So in this case, I would say, for example, A0, and I would set it equal to 7, like so. And so then we can just do console.log like so, and then rerun our application. Now you see the first element of the array has been changed from 4 to 7 because that's how we can access a single element and assign it a new value. All right. All right. So what about these mysterious arrays? What is their data type? So let's do console.log type of A, and we can see that it's of type object. And we'll talk about the object data type later because there's a lot more to it than just being able to create arrays, but it's a little bit more advanced at this point. We'll get into it soon. Just keep in mind that an array isn't a data type of itself. It is a type of something called object, and we'll talk about objects later. All right. So the other thing that's important to remember is that a array can include elements of different data types. So let me just do let C equals, we'll start it with 4, and then we'll do Alex, and then we'll do true. All right, so we've used 3 different data types right there, and we can just do node arrays. Oh, I need to actually do a console.log C. There we go. There we go. All right, so you can see that a single array can hold different data types. There's no restriction there. Let's comment that out. What happens if I try to access an element that with a index that does not exist? So let's do console.log, and I happen to know that the B has 4 different elements in it, 4 names, and let me try to access the 5th element by using the index 4, and this will be undefined. So just like a variable without any value assigned to it is undefined, so is a element of an array undefined if we don't give it a value. Now, I can also just programmatically determine the number of elements in an array by using a special property called length. So I can do console.log a dot, and remember the dot is the member access operator. So arrays are objects, and this particular object has a special property called length, which will give me the number of elements in that array. So I would expect to see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the question is it going to give us 6, the actual number, or is it going to give us to it in a zero-based fashion? And the answer to that is that it will give us the actual number, not zero-based. And this will come into play a little bit later when we use the length of an array and we iterate through each element of the array to print them to screen when we learn about looping. All right, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, there's a lot of strange things that you can do with arrays, and some of them are not always intuitive. Like, for example, if I wanted to just randomly create a new element, so in this case, I'm going to create use the index 10, which means this would add an 11th element to the array. What happens with all of the elements between where we left off, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 through 11, what will we get? So let's just assign this to 77, and then I want to do a console.log of a, and then I want to do a console.log and a.length, like we just learned about, and kind of see what happens here. And then let's run that. All right, so we can see that it prints out 4, 5, 6, 7, or I'm sorry, 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, and then it says there's 4 empty items, and then there's 77, and it says that there's 11 items, 11 elements in this array because we filled up the 10th index, or index 10, with a value. So it will create essentially what's called a sparse array, and that means that there are empty elements inside. Now, this isn't usually the way that you want to work with arrays if you need to add new values, because it's not as safe. We're inadvertently creating elements with nothing in them. There's a safer way to go about this using some additional built-in functions of the array. And so if I wanted to add that value and add it to the end of the array, no matter how many elements are currently in the array, I could use the push method. And so I say, hey, I want to push the number 77 to the end of the existing array. So let's copy this and paste it here. And then if I wanted to remove it, I can use a method called pop. So this function pop will remove the last element of the array. In fact, I can call it several times to keep removing elements of the array. And here we'll just print out what the end result is, just like we did previously. So now this should put some fireworks into our terminal window. So you can see that using push in line number 29, I was able to add the number 77 to the end of the existing array. And that gives me 7 total elements. Now I call pop 3 times. It removes 77, 42, and 23, leaving us with just 4 elements in our array. Okay, so we're going to continue to use arrays. They're a great way to keep lists of things together and accessible, and they'll become even more important again as we learn how to loop through arrays and to evaluate each element. We can even use arrays to hold on to other things like objects and functions, and we'll learn about some advanced use cases with arrays a little bit later. All right, so that's all I have to say about arrays. Let's move on and start looking into some things that are beyond the absolute basics. We'll start moving and talking about functions. All right, see you there. Thanks.